For those of you tuning in, this is the pilot episode of Torque and Horsepower. Thanks for joining us. I'm Eric Herbert. This is Alex Stursa and Drew the Hammer Miles, our editor
and producer,
chief
nudist.
Alex, when did you start working on tractors?
Well, my dad was a cat mechanic back in the day, and so I've pretty much been working on tractors since I could walk around. So I used to ride around with him. I think statute of limitations up, so I used to drive for him back in the day. So when he would get tired, I'd fucking drive the service truck around a little bit and just playing with tractors in the dirt with him, and then slowly evolved into working with him.
Did you have a farm permit?
No.
Did they have?
Yeah, they did. When I was in North Dakota, I actually got my license pretty early. They didn't have like a driving class or anything like that. My parents are transient, so I've lived in a lot of places. But we moved from California, where I met the Hammer, our producer, and we moved there. I couldn't drive yet. As soon as I moved there, I was 15, and I got my permit there, and so on is history after that.
But you didn't get your license till you were 16?
16, yeah. Oh. But I was driving service truck for my dad when I was 13.
13?
Yeah, across the Nevada desert. I only almost crashed us once, so it was pretty good.
Nice.
It definitely taught me a lot. When I was little, I would be driving, and he'd be in the passenger seat, and he'd sling the gears, and I'd drive the truck, and then after that, picked it up pretty quick.
Very cool.
Any favorite service trucks that you like?
Oh yeah, I'm trying to buy it back right now. It's still a Cashman truck at the moment, but I'm trying to buy it back for him. I have my feelers out there, so it can. Pops, don't listen to this because it's gonna be trying to make it Father's Day or birthday surprise or something. Buy his last service truck back. So I think that would be cool. He's close to retirement. Well, he's halfway retired right now, but he's close to retirement. So I think it'd be pretty sweet if he showed up to the shop and his old service truck was just sitting there.
First service truck.
Well, not his first service truck. He crashed that one.
Oh.
But yeah, that one's been in a wrecking yard for a long time, I think. But the last service truck he was in when he worked for a Cashman, I'm trying to get back for him.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I think he's done a ton for me. He's basically why I am who I am today and where I'm at. So I think it'd be a good Father's Day present. Usually for the first 26 years of my life, it was more of what can he do for me, helping me out, and now I'd like to return the favor. So instead of him using my service truck all the time because he fucking turns my base down, fucking leaves grease everywhere in it, you can have your own fucking service truck to make dirty. Yeah.
No, that's good. That's good. I think we all grow up that way.
And yourself?
Working on cars, same thing. It was something my dad was into. So we were a Volkswagen family. We had reliable cars to get to work and home and church, but like all the toys were Volkswagen, and had this piece of shit sand car, and like we didn't want to pay for paddles, so we had implement tires. Like the first time we went to Sand Mountain, which those have the opposite of traction.
Yeah.
But we had this old bug motor, it was a 1300, and like I think it was almost free, so we didn't have any power either.
Right.
So it was perfect on the flat, and my dad still tells stories about it. But that's that's where I kind of got it. He was always building some Volkswagen project. We restored some old 60s buses. They had a Baja as a third car. My grandma had a Vanagon, a Westphalia that we camped in. He'd do side jobs for other people, like, hey, can you help me with my engine? And then it was time to build an engine for the sandrail. And we actually got paddles. They were vulcanized, though. They were old truck tires that they glued paddles on. It was like the cheapest thing you could buy that had a paddle on it. And my dad hired Randy from the Buggy Barn, who's since deceased, but that was the Volkswagen guy in town. Hired him to let me build that engine at his shop. And then it was like 2 months later, I was building engines in our third garage and selling them in the Big Nickel. And I was making money, and I couldn't drive. I wasn't old enough to drive yet, but right. I was building engines. It was pretty cool. That's where it started, was Volkswagens. But
Drew and I actually got our start a little bit on Volkswagen too. My old man, one of the guys that he worked with was selling like an old, desert tube chassis, and it showed up as a chassis. And we we didn't even sandblast, we sanded it, And then since my dad worked at Cashman, we got a killer deal on cat yellow and cat black. And so we painted that fucker up. And it had, I think it had a 1600 in it with a bus tranny. And that it was always broken. But we did everything we could to get that thing going and get it going again. And Drew even got ran over. You're familiar with Volkswagen stuff, but the shift on it is you got to like push down for reverse and shit. Well, we didn't really have that in, right? And so we're climbing up a hill. Drew was behind me on his bike, and I was in the rail, and I accidentally grabbed reverse. And so she shot back down the hill. Well, this thing's brakes were like a 50-50. Most of the time they didn't work, and the other 50% they didn't work great. And so I ran him over, cracked the radiator on his bike, everything. It was a good time, but thing was on fire a couple times. I mean, we tried to roll it, but it wouldn't roll. But it was a fucking good time. But we were wrenching on that thing all the time, and bikes. We worked on bikes all the time, bikes, quads, stuff like that. The same thing though, even for like neighborhood kids, we'd work on bikes. We'd work on, where we grew up, there was a section of, there's probably like 5 or 6 of us that all rode, and Drew and I were the ones that worked on them for the most part. Between everybody,
you kept all the neighborhood bikes running.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know how well. Drew is definitely better at making them run well. I could make them run. So
he was the tuner.
Yeah. You want me to lift heavy shit? I can do that, but tires and stuff, I'm pretty fucking good at.
Nice. Oh, that's awesome.
You didn't just jump straight into the mining equipment and heavy equipment though. What got you started? I mean, out of high school.
Well, when I was in high school, we moved back to Winnemucca, and I got a job. I was into racing at the time, quads and moto, and so I stopped by Sonoma Cycle, and I was looking for a job, and they're like, "Hey, we got a job that we're looking for a guy that can sweep floors and do cashier stuff," and so that's what I did. But it worked out good because I got a lot of discount on parts and stuff like that for racing, and that's what after 6-7 months of sweeping floors and cleaning stuff, Jason let me start going to the back and helping the guys. So I would help guys build stuff, new equipment, and then I'd help them, do small things. We did a lot of PMs on like farmers' razors and rangers and stuff like that. So that's really how I got my start. And after that, I turned 18. I graduated high school when I was 17, so I had to stay there for a while because you can't do anything really. So once I turned 18, I ended up going to the mines, and I was an operator at first. So I did. First, I started on leach pad, pulling pipe. I was the only white guy on there, so I learned every bad Mexican word you could think of. And that was pretty much it. And then I started operating equipment, doing dozers, loaders, ended up going to another mine, following a shifter over there. And then that's when I really started operating. I did blades, loaders, dozers, stuff like that. They were a little shorthanded on maintenance, so I ended up on night shift. I would be our PM guy, or not PM, but lube. And then if anything minor went out, blew a hydraulic hose or lights or anything like that, I would take care of it. And that's after I did that for probably 6 months, I just ended up transferring into the maintenance department there and just doing in-shop stuff, PM. Basically the same thing, just didn't operate at all. During the wintertime, we'd have snowstorms and stuff up the mountain, so I would still run the blade and clean the road and stuff because maintenance there started an hour before shift change, and then the production crew would come on, so the road would be all bladed for them and they could make it up there. But that's where my start came from, and then I started wrenching after that.
So you didn't take the job there to work on them, but when they figured out you could work on them,
it was I would just get bored really fast, especially in a mining environment, because it's the same thing every day. Mm-hmm. They taught me to run production loader, so I was running 993K, and it's just at first it's really fun because you're on this huge fucking piece of equipment and you're loading trucks and you're having a good time. But after like day 3 of a 12-hour shift, you're like, this kind of fucking sucks. Just been doing the whole same thing over, same
dashboard for 36 hours.
Yeah, and the shifter I had, he was an old school guy, and he would paint marks on the tires because he wanted you to have a revolution and a half back, revolution and a half to the truck, revolution and a half back, revolution and a half to the dig face. So he would sit there and make sure that you had that, and it just got monotonous. I was just like,
you're counting the wheel roll.
Yep, counting wheel rolls, because the less wheel rolls you do, the more trucks you can load. And so after that, I was just like, I've had enough. I did a bunch of sloping in a dozer. That was pretty fun. If you're sitting on a dump and you're just waiting for trucks to dump, and then you push the dump, it's super fucking boring. But the sloping was a lot of fun. Starting new dumps was fun. Blade I probably had the most fun in, but also if you're just blading mine haul roads, it gets you're just basically filling in potholes and getting big rocks off the road. So I not tired of it. It was good money and everything, but it doesn't become fun anymore. So I thought, you know what, I'll hop into maintenance. My old man does maintenance. I'm decent at maintenance at the time, and I'm still decent at maintenance. But
that's good.
Yeah,
that's good.
So after that, that's when it really kicked in, the maintenance side of things. And the one thing it does work out for me now is when I do go to a piece of equipment and an operator has a complaint, I can usually get in that machine and find out if they actually have a complaint, or if
it's the operator.
If it's the operator, exactly. Because a lot of guys, if they're in an old piece of shit excavator or dozer or whatever, they'll just say, "Oh, it's not fucking working," and then the customer calls you out and they're like, "Well, this thing's not working." Well, I ran it and it fucking works pretty good. It's old, noisy, and hot, but it works good.
That's cool. It's like the old hammer under the dash in the airplane. Like they just don't want to fly that day.
Right.
Airplane's fine.
What got you into doing, actual like performance builds? Still the Volkswagen thing, or?
I don't know. There was always, and I guess part of it came from how I grew up. I don't want to say my parents were cheap. They weren't Jewish. My dad claimed he was Scottish, which he might have been. But we never had anything with power. I don't know why. I mean, I think it was to save money. My mom had a Mercedes 240D, which was like the base model, 4-cylinder diesel, 4-speed, no air conditioning, no turbo. It looked the same as a turbo Mercedes. I'm sure it was half the price. And we drove that. She bought it new in 77, and I begged her to get rid of it in 94 because I didn't have a driver's license, and she was dropping me off at school. And I was like, "Can you park over there? I'll walk like a couple blocks so no one sees this 20-year-old car." But it was a turd. Like, it seems like everything we had a Commander motorhome with a 440 Dodge in it. I think that got like a gallon and a half to the mile. It wasn't fast. It wouldn't pull anything. It wouldn't pull a hill. And then we had the sandrail, which I actually got to work on the sandrail, but started out with a 1300. It probably had 25 horsepower, maybe. We've always had a Model T. I still have it. That had like 25 horsepower, which you don't need more power because it has wood wheels. It doesn't need more power. But when I got to rebuild that engine, we had the option of, well, we could make it bigger. We could put a cam in it. We could put dual carburetors on it. And then the thing was like a totally different car. And I just wanted to figure out how to make more power.
Right.
And I still do it. Like, it kills me to take something apart and put it back together the way you found it when, more compression, more airflow, more displacement, more strut. There's always more to do. So I try to make horsepower.
And that's a wild thing because that's like the exact opposite thing that we do. We try to buy OEM components and put it back together exactly the way they found it, or we found it, so that longevity
is bulletproof.
Yeah, it's bulletproof. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I get shit all the time because I love C7s, Cat, medium duty engines. They're in all my service trucks. And people are always talking shit. They're like, "Oh, Cat C7s don't make any power. They fucking suck." Well, yeah, you have a 7-liter engine that's making 300 horsepower. The things won't die, dude. We just use them all day, every day, and they will not die. And I love them. And, you're in a service truck, so you're not going anywhere fast. You're getting paid by the hour.
You don't need to go fast.
Yeah. I mean, I do like to go fast, but all my guys, dude, you're getting 300 horsepower. We're getting paid by the hour. It's going to take you a little bit longer to get there, but we're running C7s.
Yeah, you get there.
Right.
I mean, a service truck, you need that to be the most reliable.
Right. That's how it goes, though. The service trucks get the least amount of maintenance ever. So you got to make sure that you got something in there that'll just keep on trucking until it really dies.
Bulletproof, low maintenance.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't do a ton of those. A few, but
I know you always love it when I bring stuff into your shop. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's gonna be the stuff you bring is always like weighs 3 times what anything else we work on, and we don't get to port the diesel cylinder heads or do anything.
I want to build I'm gonna refurb my service truck, so we might play around with that one a little bit. That one could use some porting.
There you go.
I got an engine at the shop right now that we're tearing down. So she might be
7-liter?
Yeah.
I don't even think I've seen one.
You're gonna love the head. It'll be super easy to move around the shop.
900 pounds.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. And they're
I think you need to turn up the old Pete.
Oh, the old Pete. Oh, she got turned up. I haven't decided if I'm gonna make the old Pete into a service truck or not, or if I'm gonna leave it for a lowboy tractor. But I got a 82 359 with a 3406 in it. So we turned her up already. She runs pretty good. But I don't have my Class A, so I probably should get that. But I bought it for a lowboy tractor. I have the lowboy, but then my dad has straight trucks, so I usually just have his drivers deliver my rental equipment.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I haven't decided what I'm gonna do with that yet. She's definitely going in the truck pool, but I don't know what I'm gonna do with it yet. I think it'd be cool to have pretty high horsepower service truck for me. My guys get fucking slow ones, but I'll take a high horsepower one.
Yeah. Or you don't go far with it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I try my best to stay within like a 150-mile radius.
So what's your wife think of working on big equipment?
Well,
Is she into it? Does she know the names of the tractors?
No,
Or...
my kids do, but my wife doesn't. She's like, I don't know. He goes every day, and when he comes back, he's back. Other than that,
sometimes he's greasy and smells like diesel. But...
yeah. As long as he can keep footing the bill, she's good. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. My wife, she knows just enough to ask some questions sometimes, but like if the car wins a race, she gets super excited, but.
Right.
She'd have a hard time identifying an engine part.
Yeah, same. My wife could probably do like turbo, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, the reason that I am where I am today is because she's always been supportive. So I can't, I really appreciate that. But she definitely doesn't give two fucks about engines or excavators or anything.
Yeah. If you're doing what you like.
Right.
And you can make a living at it, you're doing the right thing.
And she buys my kids all the lick and stick tattoos of equipment. So that goes pretty far.
Perfect.
Yeah. That goes a long ways.
That's awesome.
Harvey's usually, well, even he had his first day of school the other day, and he had an excavator on his shin, and he had a compactor back here, and he had, what do you have on? He had something on, he had a loader on his chest. So he was pretty tatted up for his first day at preschool.
Oh, that's funny. That's good if he's into it.
Yeah, he's super into it. My oldest, Everett, he's into it, but not to the extent that my youngest is. Like, he likes hanging out with dad and doing stuff, but he'd rather do other things. He likes riding bicycle, his motorcycle, stuff like that. My youngest he's a fucking hellion, but he likes hanging out with dad. He likes equipment. My wife will mess with him too. Like, she'll be driving down the road. She's like, "Oh, is that a bulldozer over there?" And he's like, "No, mom, it's an excavator." Or, "No, mom, that's a scraper."
Nice.
It's not a dozer. So he knows his shit already.
That's good.
Yeah.
They both race dirt bikes too.
They do. Yeah, they both race dirt bikes. My oldest is a little bit more reserved, concerned about himself. The youngest, he's wild. He got bumped out of his class already, so he gets to finish this year, and then he has to move up. My 4-year-old's gonna race with my 7-year-old now because he got bumped out of his class.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I am excited for that though, because there'll be a little competition there. Hopefully the older one kicks it up a little bit when his 4-year-old brother is fucking tailing him.
He has to.
Yeah, he has to.
Or he's gonna hear about it forever.
Forever, yeah.
That won't wear off.
So what about you, Eric? How did you, take that step from building stuff into your garage? I mean, did you have education after that, or, other shops that influenced where you're at?
Yeah, I built engines out of the garage forever. When I went to college, all through high school, and then I went to college at UNR, studied mechanical engineering. My parents wanted me to have I guess a valuable degree in their mind, their opinion. College was important. I didn't really enjoy it, but I was still building engines out of we rented a house. I had roommates and I was building engines out of there. And then the city of Sparks shut me down because I didn't have a license, and this old lady next door had a Toyota that she wanted me to work on, and I didn't want to work on it, so she turned me in, and so I got a cease and desist the business in the garage. So I went to go work for Superior Machine as their teardown guy. He'd done work for me before, and I knew him through the grapevine, and so I was there working teardown in college, and there's a guy there named Tony Hughes, who's I guess the infamous Tony Hughes, and he asked me where I told him I wanted to go to school. I found this ad for School of Automotive Machinists in Houston, Texas, and he asked me what I wanted to work on after if I went to school, what I would work on. I said I want to work on the same thing. I want to work on different shit all the time. NASCAR team, same engine every day. Drag racing team, same engine every day. Obviously, you're trying to make improvements, but it's the same thing. And so he actually recommended to work for Lingenfelter, and John Lingenfelter only hired out of the school that I was going to go to. So I went to the school, and before we picked school, my dad asked me, "Oh, we should pick 2 other schools, and you should go check them out before you make up your mind." And we went to UTI and a diesel school in like Utah.
Oh, okay.
And like there was some giant 12 cylinders in there, huge machines. Everything was black and dirty. I was like, man, I don't want to work on that stuff. Like you have to build the motor with a crane.
Right.
Probably great jobs in the industry for sure, but you're not improving anything.
Right.
You're just gonna make it back to how it was designed to be, and So I picked Sam in Houston. Loved it. Moved away from home for 2 years. I was a minority in my neighborhood. I loved it. Had that barbecue truck down the street. Loved it. Met some great guys. Some of my instructors are famous on TV. Pat Topolinsky does the Engine Masters, the engine TV show. I can't remember the name of it. They build an engine and dyno it. He left school before I graduated to go work for Warren Johnson, and then he went to work for Mark Powick, and a couple other guys famous I went to school with. And then had to work jobs until I had enough equipment, other jobs till I had enough equipment in the garage to go out on my own. But yeah.
Was there a deciding factor that made you just think, "Nah, today's the day"?
Well, there's always a lot of reasons. My son was, I got divorced. We got married when my son was born and got divorced when he was 2. And I had to have a real job. So I worked on boats for almost 10 years at the lake. And I did engines for those boats at the lake. So that helped in my garage. When he was old enough and going to elementary school, and a spot opened up that was in a good location, and I had already gathered a bunch of equipment. It was like I don't know, we were off every winter in the boat season, working on boats. We were off every winter. So I built engines or rebuilt cylinder heads in the garage. And then one winter I had enough of the place I worked, and the shop became available, and I had equipment. So it was time.
Right on.
And yeah, that was like 14 years ago, I guess. So.
And where was that at?
Oh, it's in Reno.
Oh, in Reno? You're working on boats here?
Oh, yes and no. I started working on boats at Custom Boat in Reno. And then in 05, 06, when the recession hit, they were going to lay a guy off that was a good friend of mine. And there was a opening at the lake because they had a guy that was moving back home. And so I volunteered to lay myself off and go work at the lake. And that worked out great. I worked at Custom Boat for about 5 years, and I worked at Incline Boat for about 5 years. I don't know if I could say their name, but I don't think it really matters. It was a lot of fun. We started Lake Tahoe High Performance under Incline Boat and did all the big fast boats.
Like the Mullet Bullet.
We didn't have many of those.
Not too many 80s day cruisers cruising
No.
on Lake Tahoe.
Tahoe's not really a day cruiser.
There, it's definitely not.
You need a deep V, and
Yep.
if you're going to go fast, it's got to be 35 to 40 feet with a bunch of power, a couple thousand horsepower. Then it's a party, but
Right.
that's a whole different price point.
Yeah. Whole different price point than what the Mullet Bullet's working with.
Yeah. But the Mullet Bullet has its place.
It does have its place. At titty bars on Havasu, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. You get a scratch on it, not a big deal. Sink
Right.
it a couple times.
Sink it once or twice. It's not a big deal.
Not a big
Yeah.
deal.
Clean the water out of it.
Yeah.
Pour some ATF down her holes and let her rip.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that works. That works.
Do you miss working on boats, or do you still work on them at all?
Not sometimes,
Yeah.
but that was one of those when I worked up at the lake. I think we had like 260 boats, and I summarized most of them and winterized most of them. I knew them all pretty well,
Right.
and there's only like 3 power packages.
Gotcha.
It's like a big block or a small block, or like maybe there's 2 or 3 4-cylinders, which I don't even think they make a boat with a 4-cylinder anymore. But the emissions got strict. 2010, 2011. They had catalyst. They added catalyst and 402 sensors. You couldn't hot rod a boat. You couldn't tune a boat. You had to plug in with a computer. It got monotonous, but I was still building engines in my garage. Like,
Right.
Someone would bring an engine, and we would see what we could do to make more power. Still doing a lot of Volkswagen stuff back then. But boats are clean.
Yeah.
There is nothing really dirty on a boat
Right.
at all. So that part I do miss.
That makes a big difference because the thing I hate most about being a mechanic is grease, and it's everywhere on them. And every day, if I'll just be covered in grease. I'm like, this is a fucking wrong job. I hate grease.
You can't avoid it.
No, you can't. It's on everything.
It's like pressure wash the whole rig.
And it just
and then
moves
go-
it from one side to the other. Just smears it. Yeah.
Just pressure wash away the area you have to work on.
Yeah, exactly. And most of the time you can't pressure wash it. So
No.
yeah.
What a pain.
No, boats are cool. I love boats, and I like working on my boat. But I don't know. I have a hard time. I don't have like the attention span, which I don't know why I do it with hydraulics, because we deal with a lot of hydraulics, rebuilding hydraulic valves, all that kind of stuff, and we do rebuild engines as well. But something about it never clicked for me for just doing engines. I don't know. I still to this day don't like to build engines. I don't know what it is. Yeah, drives me nuts. Billy, he rebuilds all of our engines, transmissions, all that stuff. He does it at our shop, and I want no part of it. I want to go out into the field and have a problem and figure out the problem and put it back, make sure it doesn't have a problem, and that's it. But the guys that do heavy equipment, same thing. They like taking that engine out, pressure washing it, tearing it down, making sure everything's clean, and putting it all back together. But we do a lot of what would be considered field maintenance. Like we'll do a field in the head, or we'll do a head in the field, and just keep it as clean as you can, put it back together. And I'm sure your shop is not like that.
No,
yeah. Like if there's a dust storm, just try and keep it covered a little bit better. That's pretty much what it is. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we do a little bit of that stuff, but it's mostly that's garage stuff.
Right.
It's like, we're just doing a head gasket. Do you want us to wash it? No, we'll do that. We got a can of brake clean.
Yep.
Some Scotch Brite. It's like the car will work. To me, it's not right.
Right.
But obviously, if it works,
right,
it wasn't wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same with fixing tractor stuff in the field. You do the best you can.
Yeah.
With what you have. I've been lucky. We're more picky these days. I try to avoid the, I guess, stuff that is going to be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
When a guy calls up with a British 6-cylinder that's all greasy and he wants you to rebuild it, you're like, I won't put it back together. We'll machine it, but you're on your own. Why don't you want to work on them? Because they always leak.
Right.
There's nothing worse than a brand new motor in your freshly painted car that pisses oil over the garage floor.
Right. Well, the British have always been known for their great teeth and engineering abilities.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, the Germans over-engineer and the British under-engineer.
Yeah, for sure.
That sucks. We'll machine it, but too many problems with some stuff.
Is that something that you like to do more, is the machining side of things, or do you like the engine building process as well?
My favorite's putting it on the dyno.
Yeah. That was probably one of my favorite times, putting the old mobile engine on dyno.
That got you excited.
Yeah, it did get me excited.
Let's hear it run. Let's see how much power it makes. Make sure it doesn't leak, squeak, tick, do everything it's supposed to do, and then when you put it in the boat, it's going to run. Yep.
My favorite part is that the dyno exhaust is just pointed right at the titty bar. That's my favorite part about the whole shop.
Yeah, they appreciate that too.
Yeah, I'm sure they do. Yeah, really gets the girls going.
1,000 horsepower, they come over and ask, like, what's going on over there? And sometimes you have to explain it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, well, you're just being just being a gentleman at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
I think the biggest difference is between us is you're more designed for like performance, specification, stuff like that, and we fix random problems in the field, but like we said, we put it back together the way we found it with OEM parts and stuff. And I think it is a good crossover between the two because it's two totally different worlds, but two people trying to accomplish basically the same thing.
Well, it's just parts.
Right. Exactly.
At the end of the day, it's just parts. We got to take it apart and put it back together.
Yeah. Is there an engine that you like doing the most versus another one, or one that you absolutely hate?
Yeah, British stuff.
British.
British is terrible. I can't think of a good British car. And all the American designs that we sold them were not good enough for us.
Right.
And they're still building that stuff.
Oh, really?
It's terrible. Oh, like Range Rover, Land
Oh, that's
Rover.
true. My wife wanted a Range Rover for forever, and I was like, I'm not against much. I'll get you whatever you want, but if you buy a car for $120,000 and 5 years later it's worth 20, we're not fucking buying it.
No. And if you buy a used one, it'd be cool. You could buy a used one and LS swap it.
Right.
Like, that'd be cool.
Yep.
But then the electronics won't work.
Right.
It's crazy. Should we call it? This is our pilot episode. 35 minutes in after we edit it, it'll be 19.
19 minutes. 19 is a good number. Yeah. Well, thanks for tuning in to the pilot episode of Torque and Horsepower.
We'll see you next time.
That's right.